So I'm going to show you guys how I built my ADA light stand for my new 90p aquarium that's going to be coming here soon. So if you want to subscribe and see that series, it's going to be really cool. We'll all year long have updates on this tank and show you guys everything I do. So if you want to stay along for that, definitely subscribe. And so I'm going to explain to you guys how I did my ADA stand or ADA light stand, homemade. And I think what makes mine different or makes you guys are going to find in this video that it's going to be a lot easier. Most people do an all plywood stand only, and that's usually how ADA does it, or whatever 3/4 material they use. I'm not sure exactly what they exactly use. I'm sure it is plywood, but you guys probably look up stands on YouTube all the time, or at least have, and realize that a lot of people build these 2x4 stands like I have here, and you're wondering, how do I get a normal 2x stand like this and still turn it into an ADA style? Because some people get confused on, how to do the doors, because you know, you got about 5 inches right here that, how do you put hinges on that? People get really confused and how to, make it like an ADA stand. Um, but because everybody knows that building a 2 by stand like this is real easy, it's nothing complicated. That's why I didn't want to show you guys a bunch of clips and me doing it, because there's already a million videos like that on YouTube. So it's self-explanatory. So if you want to know how to actually build this, there's a million videos on YouTube. I just think it's pointless for me to do the same thing. But so I guess we start explaining. So obviously, like I said, normal 2x4 stand that you see on YouTube all the time. And what I used was 3/4 plywood, a lot thicker than what most people do. Most people just put 1/2 inch, but 3/4 is a lot thicker, heavier, and it's gonna be hold a lot more weight. Now, I mean, the 2x4 already itself is gonna hold a bunch of weight. It's already gonna be plenty good enough, but 3/4, I mean, why not if you have the money? But it was just my personal choice. The only concern about it is if you're doing like a magnet system, that could be kind of a problem. But I'll show you guys kind of how to different ways to do that. But I was able to do it and it worked perfectly fine. So, but other than the plywood, obviously you have a lot of these ugly plywood edges, and some people might wonder how. Obviously, I didn't just paint over it, because you'll still, even if you paint over it. So even if you do just paint over it, you'll still see that plywood edge. So what I did was actually get Bondo, which is like a wood filler, if people don't know, but Bondo actually just gets rid of a lot of stuff. So if you're trying to get rid of edges, or it worked for screw holes too also, but it just gives you a lot more cleaner of an edge. Once you sand it, it literally just blends in with the wood perfectly if you do it right. It is a little bit hard. It's a little bit harder to work with, so you definitely probably want to look up a video if you haven't worked with it before. It can be a little complicated. It can look pretty bad if you don't do it right. So just a caution there. But bottom looks pretty good, and that covered all my screw holes and then all my edges. I just went around all the edges, and then obviously you just have to sand it with the orbital sander, and it just gets rid of all the edges, so it looks pretty good. Once you paint it, it just looks all professional and clean. And so for the actual 2x4 stand, one thing people always ask, if when people don't do a lot of wood stuff, they ask about screws, and some people might not know about screws a lot or what to get. So for screw wise, any deck screw or exterior screw will work, as long as it's, you got to figure to your width. If you're doing 2x4 stand, I mean, the longest screw you'll need, I mean, a 2.5 to 3 inch screw will work perfectly fine. These are actually 3 1/8. These are girder screws, the best screws you can possibly get, but you don't need that. These are pretty expensive, but I just had them on hand, so that's why I used them. They hold a lot of weight too, so not only the 2x4s, which are extremely strong, and the 3/4 plywood, which is also even adds it that much stronger. Than you adding these really high-dollar screws. It just this stand is really just a tank. So I mean, this thing can hold a lot of weight. Um, but obviously you don't need screws like that. I mean, you can use a cheap deck screw. It don't matter. As long as you screw it off pretty good, you'll be fine. The 2x4s are what doing most of the work for you. But other than that, and then like on the attached to plywood, you can use these screws, but I just didn't want to do that because it just leaves kind of a bigger hole. What I used is the same brand of screws girder, and I used the trim screws, which is it's just a real skinny screw with a small head, and it just leaves minimum, damage, or it just leaves a real tiny hole. So it's just a quick swipe of that Bondo and it gets rid of it instantly. So that's what I use to apply, all this plywood on the side. But again, you can just use normal screws for that, or you can actually just glue it on there, whatever you want to do. It's your choice. But the next thing, I think, is the doors. And you might be wondering, like we said, how to get hinges on something like this. And the way I did it is piano hinges. And most people, again, if you don't do this type of stuff, most people don't think about it. But piano hinges work good for something like this when you need, because they can attach to a flat surface while still being closed like this. So most people forget, these type of hinges exist, and you can. Most people will just put a door with this opening that you make, and it just doesn't look that good. It just looks better when you can have a door that goes all the way across like this. And yeah, they make big 4-foot strips of this stuff, and then you can just cut it down to whatever size you need. Obviously mine was just like a 3-foot, so cut it down, and then you just obviously make sure you want to adjust your gapping to where it all looks the same, and then screw down your doors. And then obviously the last thing really to explain, I don't want to make this video way too long because a lot of stuff is self-explanatory, but these magnetic click push hinges, they're just self-explanatory. You got your magnet, and they click right in, click right out. Obviously you might be wondering why this is here. I couldn't attach it to this because the door, obviously it only goes so high, so I had to put a piece of wood just so these magnetics would push more down, so it actually reach the door. But that's all that's there for. So if you do the same thing I do, you'll most likely have to add the same thing. You don't have to add a big piece like this. I just had a scrap, so I put it right there. But you can just have a piece that's as wide as however wide you need the hinges apart. You don't have to have all this extra hanging off. But yeah, and then the last thing, obviously I play with the bottom. That's, again, a personal thing if you want to do that. And then this is another personal thing I did. I'm going to have dosing pumps sitting on top of here, and then I wanted the lines to kind of neatly go down this into my fertilizers. So just another personal thing, but it's all just stuff you want to do, whatever you want to do in your stand, that's up to you. But other than that, if you guys want to know, like, the exact paint I use, I could definitely hook you up with that. But really, it's kind of your choice. You don't have to do gray. You can do whatever you want. It's your stand, it's your tank. But obviously, I was going for that 88 kind of look, so I went with the more space gray. So it's kind of the darker. It's not too dark, but it's not too light. It's just kind of that just right gray. So you can see, in the light, it looks pretty good, just like an ADA would. But yeah, other than that, before you know it, you got yourself, literally an ADA stand. I mean, obviously ADA stands themselves are going to be a lot nicer, anything better than we can do. But at the end of the day, this is going to hold our tanks perfectly fine, way more than fine. But if you have any more questions about this, or if you want the exact plans for this stand, if you're doing another 90p like I am, then definitely hit me up in the comments. But other than that, definitely subscribe for the series of this tank, and other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one.